Our next question is from Susan, who asks, can you lose your salvation?
Hmm. Hey, Susan, that's a really good question as well. And in fact, that one is a little bit, it's kind of hard to answer that question because we like to think that once you're saved, you're always saved and you're locked in, you're good to go and no need to worry. But I like to say it this way. As we mentioned in our last previous question about how are we saved and what are we being saved from, we learn that God is saving us from sin. But the thing is this, in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, the Bible tells us that God is love. God is love, and that's a whole other Bible study in and of itself. But just to summarize it very quickly, God is love, and one thing that love cannot do is love cannot force itself. The moment love forces itself into your life or onto somebody, it ceases to be love. It becomes selfish. And God is not selfish, God is selfless. God is love, and he will not force you. I like to think of it this way. You think about a scenario here of a young man and a young woman who are dating each other. Perhaps they're out on a picnic, and it's just two of them because of social isolation. So they're out on a picnic just by themselves. It's the perfect sunset. Everything is great. The setup is just right. And you think that this is the moment the guy is going to pull out a ring and propose. But instead, he pulls out a shotgun and he says, "Marry me or else." Now, what would you do if you were in that situation? I don't know. If you really loved him, would you marry him? You probably wouldn't marry him because you're being forced. And in the same way, God is love. He does not force his love upon us. The moment he forces us, well, that's going to scare us away. And I know that, we already know that God doesn't force his love upon us. But here's the thing. God respects you so much. He respects your free will so much that he gives you the freedom to stay, or he gives you the freedom to leave. Now, who in their right mind would want to leave Jesus? Well, there's a verse in the Bible in John chapter 6, verse 66. Ironically, it's John 6:66. And so I have my note here, and I just want to read it so that I don't misquote it. Let me just pull up real quick. John chapter 6, verse 66. And the Bible reads, "From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked with him no more." And if you analyze that verse very carefully, what it's saying is this. At one point, Jesus had 70 disciples, besides the 12, who were following him. They even had the power to do miracles. But there came a point in their walk with Jesus that they did not agree with what he had to say. And ultimately, they made a choice to no longer walk with him. Now, if you read the rest of that story, of course, Jesus was sad, but he did not force them to stay. And so, going back to the question, once you're saved, are you always saved? Or can you choose to walk away from God? And as we have seen in this verse here, God gives you the freedom to actually walk away. Now, who in their right mind would do that? I don't know, but he gives you that freedom to do so. Why? Because God is a gentleman and he does not force his will upon us.
Wow, yes, that was very good. I'm so grateful we have a good and merciful God.